So I'm going to read you a little bit of this to show you just how this works. Okay? One time my father grabbed me by the neck and the head and slammed my head into the front door. I remember that it hurt and that I was feeling the top of my head because a bump formed. I remember that that John was there also. That's his brother. I think we were being punished for making a game out of sliding down the stairs. So this is what he says to, his previous self, you might say, to kind of help reconcile the situation. He's saying, I say to him that it's all right to slide down the stairs. In fact, it's great that we have fun, that I have fun with my brother. That I have fun with my brother John. We talk about which blankets to use and the best method of sliding. I agree that I did nothing wrong to deserve the punishment. I also think about why my father hit us so hard for having such innocent fun. I say that my father does not know how to have fun. I say that my father does not have any play friends and that he did not know how to play. So he saw me doing something that made himself mad at himself, and that by smashing my head into the door, it was like he was punishing himself. I say that his father beat him even harder and that he just did not know better. I say that some people do not have to have reasons for doing the things that they do. I tell myself that there should not be an association between having fun and being punished. I tell myself that being totally wrapped up in the moment of fun does not mean that something will happen to punish me for being me. I tell myself that I accept me and that I've learned to accept my father for being insensitive and acting like an animal. And that because I tell myself that because I love such an abusive person, I love myself and all the richness that life has to offer. Now, keep in mind, who's he loving? It's really not this representation. It's really the representation of his father inside of him. That's what he has to accept. It's a form of self-acceptance because it's inside of us. And then he's got I resolve that play and fun and accepting and loving myself have no correlation to physical and emotional hurt. And by loving, and he's got stupid, angry people, which he's got a little bit of work to do here. I grow as a person. Anyway, he had to do this exercise. By the way, I had to do this exercise about 5 times, to go through it and rewrite it over and over and over again. This is one of the first versions. Anyway, and there's a bit of a discussion here. When I was a child and I was happy and having fun, I learned that I had to always be on guard and careful and hide the fact that I was having fun. When I was having fun, I learned that I could be hurt by the seemingly randomness of my father. I learned to associate feeling good with expecting pain. Now, he boiled these experiences down to one sentence. With the sentence he used here was, I learned to hide my feelings. I'm going to give you one more. You want one more? Is that all right? Because I won't. If you guys don't like this, I won't do it. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. I remember sitting at the dinner table and my father telling me that I had to eat my asparagus. I said that if I ate it, I would get sick. He told me to eat it, and I did. I immediately threw up all over the table. I think he hit me and sent me in my room without any more food. This is the discussion that he said to himself. I know what is best for me, I know what is best for me in this moment. My instincts are excellent. My father is not as aware. My father has the awareness of a sea slug. I did not do anything to deserve to be punished. My father's reaction to many things is like an animal, to strike out at whatever's there. I tell myself not to associate my father's angry actions with my beliefs and actions. I tell myself that there is not another son who could have been better for my father. My father beat whoever was his son, and therefore I do not feel guilty for being me. I do not feel guilty for being his son. I tell myself that my father must have a total lack of self-esteem because he hit a small child for such an insignificant thing. I tell myself that my father does not know how to relate to children, that he never learned to be a father. I tell myself that I've learned to love myself and learned self-respect so that I won't act like my father. I tell myself that I will continue not to eat things or do things that will harm me or make me sick. I tell myself to use this as an example Here's an example. To tell myself to believe in myself. I explain that what a metaphor is and say that I must not swallow what others tell me, or I may be sick. So I resolve in the face of stupidity, anger, and ignorance. I love myself and have high self-esteem. I cannot feel guilty over another's attitudes and actions. And then, here's the discussion. I spoke my thoughts. I expressed my feelings of what I thought was best for me, and I was punished. The incident involved food. I was forced by the threat of physical punishment to do something that made me physically ill. A combination of mental stress, physical punishment, and physical illness. I was given a choice of physical pain or eating something I thought would make me sick, and when I went against my best instincts, I was still punished. There was no escape. I felt helpless, powerless. I turned inward. I learned that when I speak up, I'm slapped down. And then the one sentence belief is I learned to act against my instincts. Now, I don't have to read the rest of these. Just by reading the beliefs, you can kind of extrapolate what was going on. I learned to create an expectation of pain. I learned to punish myself. I learned to pretend to act against my feelings. I learned to be erratic, getting like his dad. I learned to be inadequate. I learned to be insensitive to others. I felt guilty and embarrassed about not having enough money. I learned to carry my fear with me everywhere. I learned to bury my feelings. Eventually, I replaced them with things. My thoughts didn't count. I learned to sublimate my feelings. I learned how to lose respect for myself. I learned to distrust. I learned to hate. I learned violent thoughts. I learned not to be intimate. I learned the dark side. I learned to lie. Now, what are you going to do with this? Anybody got any ideas? Yeah, how are you going to do that?
Forgive yourself.
What?
Forgive yourself.
You know what? What Greg is saying is actually quite good, because what did we say yesterday about the power of making up your mind?
You can do anything.
That's right. You can do anything. Actually, when you really get right down to it, you could really wipe away all the negative energy associated with these experiences by making up your mind with enough force and conviction. It'll move all that energy out. That's not something that most people are willing to do for a lot of different reasons. There are a lot of other beliefs that come into play. Beliefs about right and wrong, and in other words, there's all kinds of judgments that come into play that would keep people from doing something like this. And typically, when they are ready to do something like this is when they start getting involved with, usually some sort of spirituality or religious beliefs that are consistent with, let's say, their desire, and how to put this into a context that it makes sense for them. And one of the only ways that you can really do that is through a lot of times spiritual beliefs. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense. But with enough conviction, you can move this energy out. Without enough conviction, you'll go through exercises. One of the exercises would be something like this. This is an exercise for collapsing painful experiences. You'll get it on the tape. You don't have to write it down. I don't really want you using this exercise by yourself anyway when you get right down to it. In most workshops, I stopped even giving people this exercise. But I'm going to do it for the sake of this tape, and just with the caveat that just do this with professionals. So you take an experience like this, okay, and then the exercise would be write 20 times. I resolve that the experiences I've written about on this paper no longer have any power in my life. Then write 20 times. I resolve that these, it's not in your workbook, Greg. I resolve that these experiences no longer make me feel guilty, powerless, or unworthy of success. Then write another 20 times. I resolve that it is time for the effects of these experiences to vanish from my life, both inside of me and outside of me. And then take the piece of paper that you wrote the experiences on. I am now burning these experiences as a symbol of my willingness to let go of the effects. As I watch these experiences turn to ashes, the energy they contained inside of me is also collapsing into ashes. And then pick a new set of beliefs that correspond to the way you really want to feel, and say, I'm now installing these new beliefs in my mental environment as a new way of expressing myself. Sean, you're kind of looking at me like, does this make sense to you?
Yeah, I was just wondering, what's going through my mind is when you're working with a professional, what is the outcome that you need to have someone with you? What is so powerful about that was what I was thinking.
Oh, this is a good question. I'm glad you asked it, because I found that when I did these workshops and gave people this exercise and I got some feedback, some people didn't really understand how to distill these experiences down into one sentence beliefs, and what they were trying to collapse. I thought might create additional difficulties for them.
Never mind suppress things that may come out that weren't even there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Some of this stuff can be really overwhelming. I do believe that nobody's going to get in touch with any information they can't handle anyway, as difficult or as painful as it may be. But even so, it still can be really overwhelming, and you really want to do it with someone who can help you through it. For some people, it won't be an issue. It really won't. For some people, they will be able to do it on their own. But that's not going to be the case with a lot of people. Another technique that's in the workbook that you can use for identifying beliefs is just follow your emotions back to something. In other words, if you're feeling a negative emotion about something, you're angry about something, just ask yourself a question, follow it back. When you think about the nature of anger, anger is a natural expression, is it not? It not only exists in humans, but it exists in the animal kingdom. So it has to have some sort of meaning in our lives, just the mere fact that we're expressing anger. Or frustration. I define frustration as simply an indication that I'm following an inappropriate set of steps to my goal. Does that make sense? I'm frustrated, and since I know that what I'm doing in any given moment is a function of what I perceive, in other words, the information I perceive in relationship to what's being offered, what I expect, what I decide to do, and the actions I take, if I'm not getting an outcome that I find satisfying and I'm feeling frustrated, well, that's just telling me I'm following an inappropriate set of steps to my goal. Change the set of steps and try a new path. Anger, to me, is a denied reflection. When I feel angry, I know that I cannot perceive in another what's not inside of me. It's that simple. I cannot perceive in another what's not inside of me. And if what I'm perceiving in another is making me angry, whether it's what they're saying, what they're doing, their behavior, whatever way they're expressing themselves, then I know that to some degree or another, that same tendency or characteristic also has to exist in me, whether I'm aware of it or not. I know this is a tough one. This is a hard one. So for an example, if I said, I hate liars. I hate them. They make me so angry. What would that tell you about me?
You have an issue with lying.
That's right, I have an issue with lying. Now, does that necessarily mean that I might consciously lie? No, not necessarily. Not to somebody else, but if I don't lie to somebody else, then I would say that I'm lying to myself. In some way or another, I'm lying. It might not be to the same degree that the other person that I'm perceiving, but the point is, at some level, there has to be something like that going on inside of me, or otherwise it wouldn't make me angry. See, because once you resolve all your issues about what it means to lie and understand that everyone's doing what they feel is in their own best interest at any given moment, even if they're misrepresenting what's going on in their mind or misrepresenting their intentions, that everyone is doing the best they can. And if I trust myself to be able to perceive someone's capabilities to either do what they say they're going to do or not do something they say they're going to, that they won't do, and always act in my best interests, then what do I need to be angry about? In other words, once all those issues are resolved inside of me, then it doesn't make me angry outside of me. Because I accept it. It's fine. They can be who they are. And if that's their capability to misrepresent things, then that's just who they are, and that's fine. I just take that into consideration when I interact with them. But if for some reason it were to make me angry, then I'd follow that emotion back to something that's inside of me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to perceive it. Because what is anger? Okay? What is it? It's a self-defense mechanism, is it not? Anger is a self-defense mechanism. I can't feel angry unless I feel threatened. Don't tell me that. I don't want to hear that. No, you. You're this, you're that, you're. See, when I talk about these denied reflections, keep in mind, it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be expressing ourselves in exactly that way. But it has to reflect something in our mental environment, that is composed of the same kind of energy. That's negatively charged. Or otherwise we wouldn't feel like we have to defend ourselves against it. It's that simple. And the reason why we defend ourselves against it is because we don't want to feel that negative energy. We don't want to feel bad. Okay, let's get into some better stuff. Techniques for neutralizing a belief. We've already talked about focus intent. And this relates to self-discipline. By the way, who's our guest here? What's that? Vincent? Yeah, you're going to help me with the cue charts, right? In case I have a problem. Aren't you glad you showed up, Vincent? Poor Vincent. I mean, you've missed like a whole day and a half of underlying material that would, help you put this into a context that, yeah, interesting, right? I feel like I've got to apologize. I'm sorry. Oh my. Anyway, okay, self-discipline. Most people think of self-discipline as actually a technique for changing. Okay? Most people think of self-discipline as a personality characteristic. In other words, he's so disciplined. And the reason why people think of discipline as a personality characteristic is simply because they are doing something that so effortlessly that we find difficult. Are you guys with me on this? Someone else is doing something effortlessly that we find difficult, and so therefore it seems as if they're so disciplined. But that really isn't the case. That doesn't mean that they don't have the capability of being disciplined. But what I mean by it isn't the case is that when someone can do something, express themselves in some sort of effortless manner, what is that indicative of? What would that be indicative of? Not self-discipline, but what?
Their beliefs.
Their beliefs. Yeah, they're just expressing themselves in a way that's natural to them. That's simply natural.
Would you also say that they're in harmony with that whole process? They're just doing it as a natural extension of themselves?
Exactly. Exactly right. Right. And so self-discipline is one of the more powerful techniques. Remember, what is the most powerful technique for change that I've given you so far? What's the most powerful technique?
Asking a question.
Well, yeah, yes, asking a question that gives you the information. What's the most powerful technique for change?
Taking the energy out of the week.
Taking the energy,
Desire.
Desire, okay? Focused intent, desire, conviction. That is the making up your mind, what it means to make up your mind. When you guys watch this tape later on from yesterday, because we talked quite a bit about what it means to make up your mind. When you make up your mind without any conflict, you're completely resolved about what you want, you can move an enormous amount of energy. That is the most powerful technique. I'll give you an example from my personal life. Probably the best example I could give you from my personal life. And that's, I grew up, when I was a child, I had an allergy called rose fever. Just like hay fever, only you get it in the spring. So usually around the first week in May of every year, from the time that I could remember, I would get, this allergy would come on, and my eyes would puff up, and I'd be constantly congested, my nose would be running, I'd be sneezing. Sometimes I'd even miss like days of school because I'd wake up, my eyes were so puffed up I couldn't even open them. Now, I went through this all my life, just something I accepted. It'd be May, June, and sometime in August when people started getting hay fever, the rose fever would subside. So I was taking, in the late 70s, I was taking this class kind of in self-awareness. And I was in commercial casualty insurance at the time, and the class was after work. And in one of the classes, in one of the weeks, the instructor was talking about conditioned response. How whatever stimulus or experience, whatever forces caused you to, let's say, react in a certain way under certain circumstances, the actual stimulus can be gone, but you're going to continue to act that same way even though the stimulus doesn't exist any longer. Like I said, psychologists call that conditioned response. Anyway, so the next week I walk into the class and I was late, and I had my briefcase and I had a box of Kleenex because the rose fever had started. And so the instructor, I walked in and said, well, Mark, what's going on? I said, well, I explained, with the box of Kleenex, the congestion and everything else. And she looked at me and she said, do you think that just might be a conditioned response? And you know what? I know, because it's hard for me to get back to that state of mind that I was back then, because it was like 25 years ago or 20-some years ago. It's like, for some reason, her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I just knew that whatever reasons that I had, or whatever conditions existed when I was a child, when I got that allergy, no longer existed. They were long gone. And the only reason why I was suffering every year is because it was the first week in May, and that's when it was supposed to start. I just knew that. There wasn't any doubt in my mind about it. I just knew it was just the kind of thing, oh, it's the first week in May, I'm supposed to get rose fever now, and so therefore I get it. When I went home that night, and this I do have a vivid recollection of, when I went home that night, I was so angry with myself. I can't, the anger was really intense. I was angry because of all the suffering that I'd done up to that point in my life, almost 30 years of suffering that I knew that just was completely unnecessary. And what I did is I focused that energy and I directed it and said to myself, when I wake up, this is it. It's over with. It's done. I am not going to experience the effects of this any longer. And when I woke up, it was gone. And I have not experienced the effects of it since. But I'm telling you, I was pissed. Really pissed. And I can also say that there isn't really anything that's really come up in my life since that, I could say that I've had to generate that much energy about. Where normally the kind of exercises I go through, the one I'm going to give you right now, as a matter of fact. But that is the most powerful way to change. It really is.
Strong motion.
Making up your mind with conviction. Making up your mind with conviction. See, yeah, it's the conviction part. See, people think that change is a function of time. Time has absolutely nothing to do with it. Time doesn't exist in our mind anyway. You know, close your eyes or go into an environment where you have absolutely no sensory stimulus whatsoever, where you can't even feel or hear your heartbeat. Go into a non-sensory environment. You can't see anything. You can't hear anything. You've got no way to measure anything. Not even your heartbeat, and you will not be able to tell the difference between 1 second or 1 week. There's no way for you to know. Think about it.
That's trippy.
There'd be no way for you to know the difference between 1 second or 1 week. 1 second or 1 day. All I'm saying is that time doesn't exist. And the other way to really know that is that all you've got to do is tap yourself into something that you forgot 10 or 20 years ago. Completely forgot the pathway to. Nothing ever triggered it, if you do remember it. And you can go back into that experience and relive it as if it just happened. Or it's happening. Everyone's had that kind of an experience. Everyone's been with somebody who was having that kind of an experience and explaining it to you in a way as if it was happening now or just happened. Same intensity, same memories, vividness, everything. All that energy will remain static until we do something to move it. Or it gets moved inadvertently. See, we can move it consciously, or it can get moved inadvertently over time. That's why people say time heals all wounds. Time heals physical wounds because our body's made of atoms and molecules. Atoms and molecules are spinning over time. There's movement over time. Mental energy is not made of atoms and molecules. It can remain static. Now, something can move it. We can move it based on our own conscious direction, or we can have inadvertent experiences over time that cause incremental changes in what we believe that move this energy. In other words, inadvertent experiences. We're not thinking about it, but we have like a nice, surprise, positive experience, causes us to think a little bit differently, then another one, then another one. Then all of a sudden we kind of look back on our lives and say, I don't think that way anymore. I remember when I used to be afraid of that. Or I remember when I used to think that way. So it makes it seem as if change is a function of time. It really isn't. It's just a function of movement of some sort. And the movement can take place instantaneously or through a process. In other words, if you can direct enough force in some way, you will get movement. Just like when people have an aha experience. Another example. The first time I got hired by a commercial casualty insurance agency, I was like one of these kind of, where I did auto and homeowners and life insurance for teachers. And then I got hired by a commercial casualty agency. And it was kind of strange because I didn't know what casualty insurance was, even though I was selling it. I mean, this is kind of bizarre, but I really didn't. It was a mystery to me. And I was young, though. I was in my 20s. And this agency that hired me was a real fast track agency that did commercial accounts where we're talking where the people paid, $500,000, $1 million or more for their insurance, big corporations and that sort of thing. I didn't have the slightest idea what I was doing. I mean, not the slightest. And so when I started working for them, they didn't really pay much attention to me at the beginning anyway. But I thought to myself, you know what? I want to understand a casualty policy because I didn't. I didn't really know what it was all about. And so I read one. I read a typical casualty policy for liability insurance. And I didn't understand any of it. Hardly a word. And I read it again. Didn't understand a word. I read it again. Now the reason why, I ended up reading it about 100 times. And that's what I did during the day. I went in and I said, okay, I'm going to read this until I understand it. Now, here's what's interesting. The reason why I knew to do that is because of another experience that I had when I was in college. I took Evelyn Wood's reading dynamics. And it was a speed reading course where when I went in, I was reading like at maybe average of 250 words a minute or 300. And by the time I was done, I think I was reading at like 5,000 words a minute. And the interesting part of this process was that what they did was, first of all, teach you how to turn pages fast enough where you can read at that speed. But the other thing is that as you practice doing this, you got nothing out of it. Just absolutely nothing. You're just looking at these pages with words, looking, boom, just looking. And it was different for everybody, but everybody at a certain point had a breakthrough. Some people is the first couple of weeks, other people is like 4 or 5 weeks into it. But what was interesting is that the breakthrough happened instantaneously. It was from nothing to everything, like that. From nothing to everything. So all of a sudden, you know, you're running your finger down the page at a pace that they told you was like at, let's say, 3,000 words a minute. And you're getting nothing out of it. Nothing. And you keep on doing this for weeks, right? Then one time, you open the book to do the exercise, and you run your finger down the page, and it's like you saw every word. And you understood it. And I mean, you may not understand the material, but at least you read it. You knew what you read. It was really bizarre. It worked. It was very bizarre. Now, because of that experience, when I got into the insurance situation, I thought, okay, I'm going to read this policy until I understand it. And it took about 100 times. I remember exactly what it was, but I did. I read it word for word about 100 times. But the understanding and the comprehension came not gradually. I didn't understand it a little bit more after 25, and then from 26, understand a little bit more. I didn't understand a word of it. Let's say from the 95th time to the 96th time, it was like I didn't understand it, and then the next time I read it, I understood it. I felt like I understood it completely. And as it turned out, I did. Because then I could go through these things and see where the attorneys were really screwing people over and how they contradicted themselves. And I mean, and purposefully contradicted themselves, that when they go to court, you know, they had the means and the grounds to deny claims. I mean, you know, I understood it. I understood exactly what was going on. And then I understood the corruption of the insurance industry.
So you went to the market instead.
Yeah. All I'm saying is that these kinds of changes usually happen instantaneously, not over time. So as a result, now, even now in my life, when I get a book that I'm really attracted to, that I know that there's insight in, that I haven't integrated that insight into my mental system in a way that I'm satisfied with, if I have to read a book 50 times, I'll read it 50 times. And there are many books that I've read that many times.
That goes back to conviction,
Right.
or the desire to make sure you get
Sure.
out of it what you want to get out
Exactly, right. And just an understanding of knowing that until that kind of aha, that shift happens, you know, I just do it until I get the shift is basically it. However many times it takes.
It's interesting. I've read several books over the years, and I've read it once, and I didn't really gather everything from it. I just put it down to, I just can't comprehend it, as opposed to saying, well, I'll go back and read it 2 or 3 more times. That's interesting.
It works.
In terms of going back?
Yeah.
And I've never done that. The only books I reread are the ones that I've really thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I would say that if it weren't for that Evelyn Wood experience, I probably I don't think I'd have done it either. But see, it not only happened for myself, I saw it happen for the whole class.
Right.
Right.
It didn't happen in, you know, and everyone, it was in different stages. Like I said, some of the people, like after the first week, they were comprehending everything. And I'm like, hey, well, what, yeah, you know, what's going on? It's like I'm getting nothing, they're getting everything. It's just like it was really bizarre to me.
Do you still read at that level?
No, you got to practice. You got to keep it up. It's not you stop doing it and you lose it. At least I lost it. Put it that way. Maybe somebody else didn't. I don't know. I'm saying that I stopped. I lost it. So I'd have to go through the whole process again. So, in the absence of extreme conviction, we'll use self-discipline. Okay? And self-discipline is simply a technique. I define self-discipline as simply a technique to stay focused on the object of your goal or intent when that intent is in conflict with something else inside of you. Does that make sense to everybody? It's just a process of continually refocusing. In other words, making another choice, making a choice, being conscious and making a choice that's consistent with your goal. The example that I like to do is just one I wrote in Trading in the Zone about when I decided to become a runner. It was like it was in the late 70s and up to that point in my life wasn't going exactly the way I envisioned it when I was a kid, and I can look back on it now and say I probably would have been assessed as being clinically depressed. And although I didn't think so at the time, if you just said, "Mark, you don't look happy." I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm a happy guy, you know. But I wasn't. I was really depressed. But anyway, something just triggered about I wanted to become a runner. I didn't know why. I just did. And it was a pretty strong desire. And so what I did is I went out and ran. Hey, I found out I couldn't even run a couple of blocks. Now, and this is coming from, you know, my late teens, and, you know, in high school I played hockey and football, and in college I did some sports. I mean, you know, not a whole lot, but you know, I was real athletic, and the fact that I couldn't run more than a couple of blocks I found very disheartening, extremely discouraging. I thought it was really bizarre, and as a result, I didn't run again for a while. I didn't even try. And then maybe 2 or 3 months later, however long it was, I tried again. Got the same experience, although I had enough, let's say, conviction to do it a couple of more times to find out that your body really, really adapts quickly, and that you get, you know, better results. You know, that the more, I mean, in other words, like I couldn't, maybe the first couple of times I only ran a couple of blocks, but then I found I could run 3 blocks and 4 blocks. I thought, hey, okay. So I went out and bought a set of, you know, running shoes and a stopwatch, and got pretty encouraged about the whole thing, and set a goal for myself that I wanted to run 5 miles by the end of the summer. And I set up a 5-mile track where I lived, or I mean, it broke it off into like quarter-mile increments, and that seemed insurmountable to me at the time. I mean, at the time I couldn't even run a quarter of a mile, so the idea of running 5 miles really did seem like it was impossible. But anyway, here's what I found, is that, you know, after I bought the running shoes and did the whole bit, you know, I found that every time I decided that I wanted to run, my mind would get flooded with all these conflicting and competing thoughts. Mostly what I did was watch TV, and that was the big one. I mean, the big one was, well, you know, there's a good program on, I'll go after the program, and of course I never went. Or I had, you know, it's cold, it looks like it's going to rain, you know, nobody else I know does this, and just anything. I would say that in the beginning, I was only able, or only managed to get through my conflicting thoughts about a third of the time. That every time I said to myself, I want to go out and run, 2/3 of the time I didn't do it. And I'm not even saying I said that to myself every day. So that was a problem. But I did, but by getting out enough and improving myself enough and getting enthused about the fact that, let's say I'm now able to run a mile, I'm getting close to running a mile, I found that I was running into another problem. And that's my enthusiasm for how much I'd already done would not take me to the 5 miles. I mean, as inconsistent as that might sound, I'd be so pleased with the fact that, let's say I'd run 1.5 miles or I'd run 2 miles, what would compel me to run 5? So I knew that I needed another rule, and I called it the 5-mile rule. The 5-mile rule was, if I managed to get my shoes on and get through my competing and conflicting thoughts, that I always had to run 1 step further than the time before. And I had a journal. I mean, I still have that journal, where, you know, the date, how the time, in other words, the amount of time that I ran, how far I ran, and usually some notes about what was going on. And I never broke the 5-mile rule. I really didn't. If once I got out, I always at least ran 1 step further. Many times it was more than 1 step, but I never let myself run less than 1 step, no matter what. Now, here's the interesting part about this, and here was the kind of breakthrough that I had, is that there was a point in this process And I don't remember exactly where. In other words, whether it was at the 5 or at the 3 mile mark or the 2.5 mile mark or whatever. But there was a point at which the energy inside of me, in other words, I don't know what my conflicting beliefs were at that time about why I had so much resistance to being a runner. I don't know what they were. Even to this day, I mean, I could go back and probably figure it out, but I haven't, there's no point to it. But the point is, there was conflicting energy. It was keeping me from fulfilling my desire. In other words, you would think that if I decide I wanted to run and I'm capable of it, that I'd be able to do it. Well, I wasn't able to do it because of these competing and conflicting thoughts inside my mind. But what ended up happening is that every time I created an experience of running, by getting out there, I was building what? Was I not building a positive belief structure in my mind that said what? I am a runner. Meaning every time that I went out and ran, I added energy, positive energy, to this belief. As that belief grew and became more and more of an inherent part of my identity, the conflicting thoughts correspondingly dissipated until there came a point at which I had no choice but to run. Now think about that. Instead of there being any conflicting thoughts about running, I was then compelled to run. The belief said, I am a runner. Uh-oh, I got to run today. Are you guys with me on this?
Yeah. You had no option.
I had no option to run.
Negative was-
Until I got to the point where I was then starting to do damage to myself and to my body because I wasn't paying attention to what my body was telling me in any given day. Some days my body just did not want to run. It didn't matter, I ran anyway because I am a runner. Then I had to create another belief about what it means to pay attention to your body and that I don't have to run every day just because I am a runner. You see, I felt compelled to run. So someone could look at me and say, oh, he has so much discipline. He's running every day. I didn't have a choice. Now, does everyone understand what I just said? What if we had a belief inside our mental system that said, I am a What if there was a strong belief inside your mental environment that said, I am a consistently successful trader? And all the principles that made up that definition of what it means to be consistently successful. What then? You would have no choice but to be consistent because it's a function of your identity. It is who you are. In other words, once you integrate those principles into your mental system in a way that's consistent with this definition, this will be your results because you can't be any other way. This is what this workshop is all about right here, is getting to this. Just this belief that says, I am a consistently successful trader. Because the principles, which we'll go into in a minute, the principles that make up this belief, once integrated, will not allow you to act in any other way that's inconsistent with those principles. And so you will have no other choice but to be consistent. No other choice but to create consistent profits. It will not be an option. And that doesn't mean you'll never have a losing trade. All I'm saying is that anything other than consistent results will not be an option. Guys with me on this?
Ready?
And so what does it mean to be self-disciplined then? What is discipline? How did I describe discipline? It's just a process, right? It's just a technique. It's a technique to refocus. In other words, in any particular exercise that you may adopt or devise for yourself to install the principles of what it means to be a consistently successful trader, whatever conflicting energy that may be inside of you that distracts you from the way you need to be focused, all you need to do is simply make another choice. Become aware of what you're thinking, what you're saying, and what you're doing, and I'll give you an exercise to help you do that. But as your awareness grows, then what you do is you stop yourself in the middle of a thought and say, you know what? This thought leads to this when this is my objective. My objective is consistency. Therefore, I'm going to redirect my thoughts, and this is what I'm going to do the best I can. And even if you don't do it very good, that's all right, because the next time it comes around, you're just going to do it as best you can again until all the conflicting energy is gone. And then it's simply acting in this way is effortless. It takes no particular energy because it's simply a function of your identity. It will be effortless. Even if you're trading mechanically or subjectively, it will be effortless, which is the way trading should be anyway. It should be really an effortless endeavor. Except for the amount of energy it takes to work your mouse.
Do you find that the desire curve change inversely as you get closer to your goal?
Well, it can. I mean, it can. That's why.
As the conflict becomes less, getting there, the desire doesn't have as much energy because you're not fighting such a negative belief pattern.
Well, that's why I set up the 5 mile rule. That is exactly why I set that 5 mile rule up, because I recognized that while I was in the middle of it, because I'm thinking, you know what? I'm so enthused with my results at this point when I hadn't reached my goal yet, that I'm thinking, well, what's going to get me to my goal? Because I know I'm going to quit.
So basically what you're saying is you need to
I'm not
set a
saying
higher
you need to do
target.
anything. I'm not saying you need to do anything. All I'm saying is that
Cognizant.
keep in mind. So when you use those words, you're using them in a definitive way, implying that I'm saying that this is all individual, Dave. Okay? So go ahead. Now say what you're going to say.
If I understand then what you're saying, I would want to, in order to, what John had just mentioned, in order to keep that desire at 100%, you would want to make the goal something that is far enough out so that you're constantly achieving it. Is that what I'm understanding? As opposed to something that's achievable with ease? Maybe I'm missing something here.
I don't know that you're, well,
Baby steps.
these hypothetical things. What about Bob?
No, I
Movie?
said, I was going to say, baby steps.
I love that movie, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, the principles being, you need it far enough out, right? But you need it enough that you don't get distracted.
Right.
No, I think what you guys are maybe also implying or talking about is reaching a level of comfort, and that comfort can be insidious. In other words, we reach certain comfort levels, comfort plateaus, and it's very difficult at that point to even generate enough desire to
That's
formulate
what I'm-
another goal.
That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, And these are kind of difficult questions to answer hypothetically. They really are. I mean, the reason why I say that is because unless you can give me something specific in the moment that you're working with, it's really hard for me to come up with like a hypothetical answer.
I understand.
Okay.
Would it be like analogous, I want to be a successful trader, but you had the 5 miles in front of you. Maybe you say that I want to average X amount per day or week.
You can do that too.
That would be similar to your 5
Absolutely,
miles?
sure. As long as you don't let yourself get obsessively focused about that amount of money. In other words, you don't know how much the market's going to make available to you based on your methodology, and you got to be willing to accept whatever's there. Some days it might be more, some days it might be less.
That's why I said average,
And I've worked, and I've worked with floor traders. One second, Jake. I've worked with floor traders where we've done these kind of goal settings, where we're specific dollar amounts. And one guy in particular comes to mind where, we went through this process and said, okay, he wants, I think it was $5,000 in his account at the end of the week. Okay, so we we projected that goal out there, 5,000 at the end of the week. He forgot all about it. He really did. He just went about his business. And then at the end of the week, he looked at his statement and he virtually had $5,000. And it's like it freaked him out. He wouldn't do it again.
He wouldn't do it?
He didn't do it again, right. The implications were too powerful for him. He didn't want to know that he had that much power to control his life and the destiny of his life and what his outcomes were.
It's empowering.
It was empowering, but too empowering for him at the moment.
Yeah, what I was thinking is, you're saying that to install the belief, I am a consistent, successful trader, not make it a goal, though, aren't you? I mean, or are you saying?
Well, unless that belief exists inside of you now, Jake, that is your
That's not
goal.
really a goal. You're saying that that's the belief you have to instill in yourself. And if there
Jake, no, I'm saying that's your goal, to instill that belief.
All right, the goal is to instill.
What?
Okay.
No, say it again then. How are we
The
misunderstanding each
goal
other?
is to instill that belief.
Yes, that's the objective. The objective is to get that belief. You want to get that belief with as much positive energy in it as possible. Okay? And how do you know it's there? When you act effortlessly, you behave, you express yourself effortlessly, that's consistent with what that belief means. We together on this?
Say again. I think I had a brain freezer. I nodded, I'm thinking, I can't even recall 30 seconds ago. I'm sorry. I was listening to Jake, and suddenly you said something you don't agree, and I nodded, and I went, no.
Yeah. How do you know how do you know when that belief is present? Is when you can act effortlessly out of the principles that make up that belief.
Okay.
Okay? Now this is a complex belief. It's not like, petting the dog or becoming a runner. This is very complex, which is multi-stepped. In many cases, I mean, and maybe not as many steps for some people as others, but the point is, there's a lot of steps involved here. There's a lot of principles that make up this belief to be consistently successful. But the point is that when it is installed at a functional level, you will simply express yourself in this way as a natural function of your identity. You won't be able to do anything different because it won't let you.
So how we install it?
Jake, come on. That's what we're doing right now. Okay, we're getting there, okay?
Take a
What?
5-minute break for restroom.
Yeah, we're going to take a break anyway. You're right. I'm glad you did, because I was going to take a break anyway. Jake, come on. You're all right.
So the patience is one of my feet.
That's right. I know. That's why I'm holding this off, Jake. Did you know that?
Yeah.
So I have to feel the discomfort.
That's right. I'm doing.
No. It was a big store that had a lot of snow.
Are we ready back here? Are we all set? Okay, everyone understands discipline, right? Self-discipline, not a personality characteristic, just simply a technique to refocus. Now, the whole idea is that you want to get to a point where you can pay attention to what you're thinking or what you're saying or what you're doing, like to become an objective observer to your own life process, you might say. So, for example, when I told you that many times when I'd ask myself a question about, when I was writing The Disciplined Trader in particular, like the answers might come, hours later, days later, or whatever. I mean, they just came when they did. And, but in many cases, these answers were coming while I was in a situation with like another trader, where I was acting in the capacity of a coach, and I heard myself, or in essence, listening to myself say this answer that I didn't know at a rational level. Now, unless I was paying attention to myself, I might not have even noticed. What I'm saying is that I had become like an objective observer to my own stream of thoughts. And that's what you also need to do. You also need to learn how to do that, so that as you're listening to yourself, as you're listening to your own self-talk inside your mind, you can redirect your focus of attention onto the object of your goal when you find that you're experiencing conflicting and competing thoughts. So I'm going to give you a technique to learn how to do that. And this technique is simply to learn how to become an objective observer. That's all. And we're going to do this in a minute. And by the way, for the video guys, when we do this, you can shut the camera off because we're going to be doing this about maybe 7 or 8 minutes. But you can leave it on if you want. It doesn't matter, but we'll end up cutting it out probably. But
Is the technique written out?
no, it's not. It just says the counting exercise. That's where we're at right now. We're on page 3 of section 5. We're at the counting exercise. That's what I'm giving you. I'm sorry, I should have pointed that out. It's like it's called. It would almost be like in my previous workbook I called it the coach and quarterback technique. It would be like, the coach and the quarterback years ago anyway used to formulate game plans together in a football game. It probably isn't like that now. Probably it's the coach, the offensive coordinators and all. It's very sophisticated now. But back, probably 20, 30 years ago, it was a function of the coach and the quarterback. They get together, formulate a game plan, and the coach is standing on the sidelines. The quarterback is in the game, supposedly to execute the plan, right? Well, let's say the quarterback gets emotionally involved in a game that can be particularly destructive in that, let's say he gets sacked a few times, and as a result of things that are going on, he gets completely distracted from the actual plan as it was agreed to by he and the coach, right? The coach, on the other hand, is standing on the sidelines watching him. Well, the quarterback himself is oblivious to the fact. He's so caught up in his emotions at that moment that he's virtually oblivious to the fact that he's not following the plan anymore. Coach, on the other hand, is looking from an objective perspective and sees, hey, okay, he's screwing up. So what he does, he grabs the guy by the collar and says, hey, get your mind right or you're going to be out of this game, right? Okay? We as traders don't have the luxury of having somebody in our minds, as an objective observer saying, okay, you're not focused in a way that's consistent with your objective. You've got to make another decision, make another choice, think something else, make a choice to think something else, think something that's consistent with what you want. We've got to learn to do it ourselves. And so this exercise will help you learn to do it yourself. And when we do it, it's very simple. The objective is simple. I'm saying the task is absolutely, it couldn't be simpler. The task will be this. I'll sit down and do it with you. I'm going to say, take a deep breath, let it out, close your eyes, breathe normally, and all I'm instructing you to do, or you're instructing yourself to do, is count your breath. So that when you inhale, say 1, and when you exhale, say and when you inhale, say 2, and when you exhale, say and when you inhale, say 3, and when you exhale, say and then back to 1. So you're going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And we're going to do this probably for 6 or 7 minutes. I would suggest that you do this for about 10 to 15 minutes a day. At least 10 minutes a day, preferably 15 minutes a day. Now, there are going to be some inherent problems. Number one, if there's so many thoughts swirling around in your mind, in other words, your mind isn't very quiet, you will probably experience bleed through. What I mean by bleed through is that you cannot make a distinction between counting and distracting thoughts. You're not doing one or the other, you're doing both. If you find that's the case with you, then I'm saying that you will probably have to do this exercise for 2 or 3 weeks before you even get to the point where there is a clear, definitive distinction between your counting, when that's the only thing that you're doing, and a distracting thought. Because the object of the exercise is to stay focused on counting, and that when you find yourself in a distracting thought, you just simply acknowledge the distracting thought and go back to counting. Just make another choice. Okay, I'm distracted. I understand that. And go back. Okay, I'm going to count. Oh, I'm distracted again. Oh, I'm going to count. I'm distracted again. Start counting again. I'm distracted again. Start counting again. Now, as you do this exercise over time, you will find that you'll be able to go through more and more cycles of just staying, you're training your mind basically by making this choice to go back and count, you're training your mind to stay focused on one thing, the objective at hand, whatever it is. In this case, it's just counting. And what you'll also find is that when you do make this clear distinction between counting and being distracted, you will find that sometimes you're in a distraction that you could be in for several seconds, if not several minutes, and not even know it. In other words, you're not even conscious of the fact that you're distracted. Then all of a sudden, your mind kind of wakes up and say, oh, I haven't been counting. Now, how long was it? Was it a second? Was it a minute? Virtually impossible to know. So as you continue to do this exercise and you continue to practice, what you will find is that the amount of time that it takes for you to recognize and acknowledge the distraction starts to collapse. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it gets to the point where the distraction and the awareness of the distraction become virtually simultaneous. At that point, you have become an objective observer to your own stream of thoughts. Because you're constantly and consciously aware of the stream of thoughts that are running through your consciousness in any given moment. Which gives you the option of making a choice. Is this what I'm going to think, or is this what I'm going to think? Right? The best way to catch a trading error is your thought first, right? Instead of after the fact. Does everybody understand what's going on? Okay, so what are we going to do? I'm going to sit down. We're going to take a deep breath. We're going to close our eyes. We're going to breathe normally. And we're going to set this task for ourselves of just counting our breath by cycling the inhales by counting, the exhales by saying and going from 1 to 4 and back again.
We're doing it silently or out loud?
Oh no, silently. You can visualize the number, or you can say the number to yourself, whatever. That doesn't make any difference. What makes it, but the object is just keep your thoughts focused on counting. And when you find, if you do make a clear distinction between counting and distraction, then whenever you notice you're distracted, just simply acknowledge it and start counting again. Make another choice. Okay, again, does everyone understand what we're doing? Okay, let's do it.
Like it was on the last day of trading. You got 3 positions, 5 minutes to the close, and you're watching each one go bing, 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 bing. And it was like the focus and the concentration was just there as I'm counting.
So it was a good experience. I mean, yeah, you did real well is what you're saying. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because it's something you're used to doing anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. How'd you do, Jake?
Good.
Yeah?
Toward the end, sort of losing a little bit.
Getting impatient, wondering when I was going to wake you up? Huh?
I really like ready to fall asleep too. Well, actually,
Can everyone see the benefit of doing this? Do you need any further explanation about this?
I think I know what the benefit is, but I'm trying to see how it would translate into when you're trading or doing any other task for that matter. You're trying to get yourself to be objectively focused on one thing, in this case the breathing, correct, and the count.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say after 2-3 weeks you've become pretty proficient at it. What do you do then? What does that
Oh, you'll
you're
find
just saying that
you'll find it
allow you-
automatically. You'll find it
you just
automatically.
flow
Yeah.
through the rest of your
Oh yeah,
tasks.
absolutely. You see, you're becoming more aware, and in the exercise itself, you're forcing yourself to stay focused. But what I'm saying is that what ends up happening is that as you're just going through your daily life, you're just finding yourself paying attention to what you're thinking.
I see.
So when you're trading, it's going to translate into you notice that you're not focused properly to accomplish what you intend to accomplish as a trader.
Understand.
Because ultimately, I said what? Your results are a function of what? Remember what I said that was? What are your results a function of? I don't mean ultimately this right here, but remember, your results are a function of what?
Beliefs, desire.
What?
Desire.
No.
Ability to give yourself money?
Well, yeah, but even more so. Remember there was a statement I made yesterday. Your results are a function of your state of mind. State of mind.
do this exercise frequent enough that you find yourself not getting sidetracked?
Well, you can,
I mean,
you know, the thing is, it's not a matter of how often you get sidetracked as much as you're being acknowledging and being aware that you're sidetracked
And being conscious of it.
and being conscious of it. Because once you're aware that you're sidetracked, then you can make a choice of staying sidetracked or refocusing.
And should I keep trading right now or should I take
Yeah,
a break?
exactly. Remember I said if you're not in the most appropriate state of mind to trade, what are you going to do? Scale back in a way that's consistent with the state of mind you're in, or not trade at all? Because not trading is like putting money in the bank. Just because you want to trade all the time doesn't mean that if you want this, if this is your objective, guys, remember we can have other agendas for trading other than this. You can be trading to have fun. You can be trading to be a hero. You can be trading to, in essence, subconsciously lose your money. There's all kinds of other reasons you can be doing this. You may not even be conscious of some of those reasons, but I guarantee you, you wouldn't be sitting here right now if there weren't other forces inside of you that were in direct conflict of this belief right here. How are you going to become aware that you're acting in a way that's inconsistent with this belief unless you become aware of the fact that you're acting inconsistent or thinking in a way that's inconsistent with this belief? Awareness is the key. So if there's something going on in your life where it just makes sense that you shouldn't be interacting with the market, then don't trade. I'm sure everyone's read trading books. They said, you get traumatic experiences in your life, deaths, divorce, moving, a lot of things that cause a lot of trauma. Well, you know what? They said don't trade, right? It makes sense. Don't trade. If it's having a negative impact on the way you see things. Now, those are the big things, okay? Those are the things that are easy, okay? The things that aren't so easy are the subtle little things. That's where you need increased awareness. Because, remember, you don't need to do any of this to put on a winning trade. Winning trades come whether you're aware or not, totally oblivious or not, make mistakes or not, you can still win. But if your desire is to be consistent, then you have to have a way of knowing whether or not you are thinking or acting in a way that's consistent with this objective. And you can see the implications of doing this kind of work there can be some pretty profound implications in our lives, which is why so few people ever get to the point where they break through that threshold of consistency. What time is it? 20 of 12? Probably just enough time. Greg, you wanted some things, you want to share some things with us? Enough time just for Greg can do that before lunch and we'll break for lunch.
Yeah, that's fine. I guess I just wanted to acknowledge the power of this I am and whatever follows. I made mention yesterday, I was a marginal trader. I was probably breaking even, losing. I don't really exactly remember. But there's power to this I am. I made mention that I went to this meditation type class or whatever. It was a session, over 6 weeks or whatever it was. And one of the things, in addition to meditation, was you had to identify I am blank. And it's whatever, and you had to do whatever the blank was, you had to identify it in a positive frame and it was basically part of who you are. There was some mothers there, so it's like I'm a good, loving mother. My own, I will share my own, and I'm going to share them twofold because that's how I have them in me. And I think this made me the 200,000 in 6 months, and I know that I need to get back to.
Well, first of all, they don't know that, so why don't you state that?
I
State where
did.
you were and where you ended up being. In other words, you just assumed we knew that.
No, he
Say-
mentioned
I
it
mentioned that
yesterday.
yesterday.
Oh, okay, okay, I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
mentioned that yesterday.
Okay.
That's
Sorry.
why I was just.
I'm sorry, I forgot.
I would find myself, driving down the highway, and I would go through my I ams, so you can do it there. And what you find yourself doing is, you may come up with one of them that it's like I want to argue with him, as I want to put it, because this is the way I used to say it, is I'm a consistently profitable trader. And I can see now where maybe successful is better, because successful encompasses a bigger, because profit is one of the functions of success, and there are other pieces to success. So if you find yourself saying this and arguing with yourself, well, no, I'm really not, I didn't make money this week or last month, that's fine. Argue with yourself, and maybe he can put it a little differently. But the point is, we'll then get to the point where what are you successful about? Maybe you're back to your questions. And then answer those. And it had an effect on me. So if I could ask, when I get to my trading ones, I just want to, the ones I'm leaving out, I have my own little list I wrote here on the train, or I should say on the plane on the way out. If I could have someone, maybe after they've heard mine, maybe we can go through and check them off, because I want to find the ones that I'm missing. But these are mine, and I'm going to start with my personal ones first, and then get into my trading. And it's going to start, my personal one's going to start with I am, and then all these adjectives, and then I'm going to say the nouns, the 4 nouns at the end. And then I'm going to do my trading ones, and I always say them a little differently because I don't know why, I just do. It's I am an adjective trader, I am an adjective trader, I'm a blank trader, I'm a blank trader, I'm a blank trader. So here I go. I am Greg. I am a warm, loving, caring, happy, positive, optimistic, opportunistic, grounded, centered, balanced, extremely wealthy, healthy, wise, easily releasing, physically strong, awesome trader, husband, father, friend. I am lightning fast on the keyboard trader. I do perfect keyboard work. I'm a consistently profitable trader. I'm an intuitive trader. I'm a quality trader. I'm a skillful trader. I'm grounded, centered, and balanced trader. I'm an opportunistic trader. I'm a positive trader. Because I haven't done them in a while, I'm kind of forgetting some of them. Give me just another second here and they'll come back to me. I'm goal exceeding trader. I think I already said this. I'm calm and relaxed, grounded, centered, and balanced trader. I'm concentrating trader. And now I'm kind of blanking. And I'm looking at my, big one I'm missing, and this is probably affecting my trading lately. I'm a flexible trader, meaning I'm not seeing necessarily the turns. Or I'm seeing, okay, it's time to short, and no, it's not. It's all it is, a little pull in and they're going up still. I'm an adaptable trader. I'm learning and transforming trader. I'm a valued trader. One I guess I got a little problem with is I'm a hard-working trader, because I don't know, because trading should be easy. And I love it. I'm a love it trader. I'm friends with the market trader. I'm a patient trader. That's the one thing I'm working on. I'm a patient trader. And I'm easily releasing trader. Make a bad trade, and I just want to let it go with love, so I can get on and be ready for the next trade, rather than, you know, why did I do that? Why was I so stupid? I don't want to go there. Let's just give it away, so I'm ready for the next trade. Those are the ones that I use. So thank you for allowing me to share, because it'll anchor them into me more.
Can I ask
Thanks
a
a lot.
question?
Yeah.
Can you have too many IMs? I mean, I'm just asking that as a, I mean, my reaction was, can you be too many things and lose focus? Or would you be better off?
I've
having-
wondered that, and I guess
long as they don't
I
conflict.
think you can, because the woman who instructed me in the beginning, you can, and I think I probably have a little bit too many, and I maybe have resolved it to, I'm going to use the ones that I need at this point in time. And it's a function of maybe the ones that I can't remember, like I am patient and I'm flexible. Those are the things I need the most.
That's right.
And so I need to move those a little higher on my list. And maybe initially you'd want to keep it to 3 or 4 key ones.
I'm going to give you 7, by the way.
Oh, okay.
You say, if that's what you, go ahead, I'm sorry, Greg, but yeah.
And I think I've gotten away from these lately, and so I'm dedicated to putting myself back in my circle, of my IMs and my trading, and just be there, make it happen.
I've got another one for you, but it's not an I am. One that
Okay.
popped into my brain as you were talking.
All right.
Market loves giving me money.
Yeah.
Market loves giving me money.
Oh, one other one I wrote, new one I put down. I'm a grateful trader. I'm
Good.
grateful for the
Sure.
success.
What time is it, Michelle?
Oh, it's a quarter to 12.
Quarter to? Okay. Well, you know what? We don't have enough time to listen to the other side of the Monroe tape at this moment. But you know what? What I do want to do though is I do want to go over how to use the Monroe tape. When we listen to the, because we've got just about enough time to go through that just before lunch. When we listen to the other side of the Monroe tape, Bob Monroe is going to install in your mind this function command. It's called plus no more, no more. And what he's basically saying is that whenever you notice yourself, see now you've got the skills, you're acquiring the skills to be able to notice when you're thinking in a way that's inconsistent with your goal or objective, especially something particularly negative, something you want to neutralize, then you can use the plus no more command to dissipate it. That's what it's there for. It's a tool. That's exactly the express purpose for which it is in your mind. Now, like any other belief, the more you use this tool with conscious conviction, the stronger it gets and the easier it becomes to neutralize any, let's say, negative or unwanted beliefs.
Conflicting.
Right, conflicting beliefs.
Whenever it comes
It will
up.
work if you believe it. It will not work if you don't. It's that simple.
I'll believe it when I see it.
That's right.
I'll see it when I believe it.
That's right. So everybody, what John's saying is the title to a book that Wayne Dyer wrote, which I really love. Instead of, I'll believe it when I see it, he turns it around is, you'll see it when you believe it.
That's right.
It really is. It's an awesome statement. It's a great book title. And that's true for this. If you believe it, it's going to work. If you don't believe it, it ain't going to work. It's that simple. And it doesn't matter how many times you listen to the tape. Again, you can listen to the tape as much as you want for other purposes. All I'm saying is that Bob Monroe doesn't know what you want to neutralize. You have to make up your mind, and you have to do it with conviction. However, what I have done is I've given you, starting on page 3 of section 5, I've given you a way to at least work with the 4 primary trading fears that that cause most of the errors that we're going to be inflicting upon ourselves. So when using the Monroe Institute tapes to neutralize your trading fears, to neutralize any fear, first and foremost, you have to decide to step through it. You want to step through a fear because you are attracted to the results, meaning an expanded freedom of expression, or as a trader, being able to trade without fear. So the way you'd use this plus no more, no more command would be when every time you notice yourself thinking or feeling the fear of being wrong, what I want you to do is capture the thought or feeling and use the plus no more, no more function command to dissipate it. Then purposefully redirect your thoughts to a new belief you want to energize. Now when I say capture the thought, you know what I mean by that? Make it tangible in your mind. And you can do any number of things to make thoughts tangible. Just use your imagination. Like one technique or exercise that I used to give people years ago was to imagine that particular fear being a battery with all this negative energy in it. Like imagine a battery inside your mind and label the battery being wrong or what it means to be wrong. And then see yourself attaching these lead wires or ground wires into the ground and watching all the negative energy just flow right out of that battery. While you're saying plus no more, no more. But most also, what is just as important as going through this exercise of using plus no more, no more is to also redirect your thoughts to what you want to believe. What do you want to believe? I want to believe my success will come from a string of trades. Not this next trade, but a string of trades. Because if I've got an edge, that edge is going to play itself out in my favor over a string of trades. Or trading is not a right or wrong game. I'm committed to staying focused on the skills I'm attempting to acquire. Or I don't need to be right on this next trade. I don't need to know what's going to happen next to make money. Those are all positive beliefs that can replace trading out of thinking that it's a right or wrong game or has anything to do with being right or wrong. It's just a probability game.
Dave, go back to that bottom fellow. If you didn't follow your rules, you consider that wrong, right? Let's say you didn't follow, you want to follow resistance and support, you didn't follow it. That would be wrong, though, right? That would be okay to say you're wrong because you didn't. You just.
Well, John, I don't see. The thing is like I don't know if that serves you. Okay, you can do whatever you want. To me, if it depends on the context of the word wrong. For most people, the context of the word wrong is that it's extremely negative. Now, and the problem is that if it causes you to experience a negative state of mind, that's something you're going to want to avoid. And as a result of wanting to avoid it, you may not be completely honest with yourself. And so therefore, if you can take even that out of a wrong context, it's just something that's there. It's just something you did. It's just, it's just like looking at the nature of mistakes. Mistakes don't have to be mistakes in the negative context in which we're taught. Mistakes just point the way to what we need to learn. So if you didn't follow your rules when you're doing that bond exercise, what is that saying? It's just saying, okay, I'll just do better the next time. Instead of saying I'm wrong, this is wrong, I'll just do better the next time. Just the same thing you'd tell a kid or something that was, do the same thing to yourself. Give yourself the same break, okay? Losing money. We're going to go through the same process. Repeat the plus no more procedure from above, then purposefully redirect your thoughts to a new belief that you want to energize. So, these are the new beliefs. I truly accept there's a cost associated with trading. Therefore, I have determined what it would cost me to find out if this trade is going to work, and I'm willing to spend the money. Now, if you really have a problem with spending the money, there's another technique that I can give you that's really pretty powerful. Keep your checkbook by you and write a check out as a symbolic gesture for your willingness to spend the money on this trade. So if you're willing to say, if you've determined that the risk of this trade is $500, you write a check out for $500 as a symbolic gesture saying, okay, this money I'm willing to spend to find out if this trade's gonna work.
You can't write that check.
You can't write that check. You're having, what is that telling you? Okay? Now, what's important here is to participate, right? So if you can't write the check, then what are you going to do?
Take the trade.
What? Oh, okay, maybe not take the trade. There is something, that's the last resort, not taking the trade. What's that?
Lower the numbers.
Lower the numbers. Lower the number of the shares. You don't necessarily want to trade what you have determined the actual risk is of the trade. In other words, whatever that dollar value of the distance is, you don't want to move the distance just to accommodate the fact you can't write the check out. Trade smaller.
If you're only trading one contract, you've got to
That's
do
a problem.
that, then you'd have to no trade.
That's one contract. If you're trading futures, you're a one contract trader. That's a problem.
Wheat.
Yeah, wheat. Yeah, go to corn and wheat. Right. Mini contracts in corn and
Mini
wheat.
wheat.
Yeah, mini wheat, $12.50 a penny, and the range is only 2 cents a day. So it's like
Scale out.
yeah, and scale out, right? Or trailing stop. Here we go. Greg.
I guess the way my style is sometimes I'm accepting of the risk being a nickel, accepting of the risk being a dime or 15 cents. And due to market conditions, it's a quarter. It's like I think to myself, gee, I never thought I was going to lose a quarter or 30 cents. That wasn't my goal. But it just, due to the function of the market at that time. How do I get around that?
I mean, because you misassess the actual risk?
Yeah. Or you just...
Then you just misassess the actual risk, that's all.
That's it.
Isn't
Yeah.
there
Right.
a difference between misassessing the risk and executing a trade at your stop? That's slippage.
That's not
gets
a
you.
mistake, it's slippage.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
one thing if you say, I'm gonna lose a dime or 15 cents.
Yeah, maybe trade
You
just
take the
too
trade out
much
at 15
because,
cents,
if it
but you
costs
don't
too
get
much,
filled.
lower the
I mean, you were
cost.
still true to your cause.
That's right. There's...
The bid changed and there just wasn't anything.
Hey, you know what, Greg?
When
Greg,
not.
guess what? Anything can happen. See, Greg,
I believe you.
if you didn't believe it before, you believe it now, right? The extra 15 cents proved it to you.
And you still gotta go back to give it away with love.
That's right.
Right.
Just happen. Because it is sometimes just happen.
That's right.
Trades.
Okay, missing out. Repeat the plus no more function command procedure from above, then redirect your thoughts. Alternative beliefs could be the markets are in perpetual motion and will stay that way until everyone agrees on value. Therefore, there is always another trade.
Amen.
I accept that my results are a perfect reflection of what I've learned and how well I can act on this knowledge. This acceptance allows me to extract the insight out of the experience to determine what I need to learn to do better. So in essence, you really can't miss out on anything. If you had the capability of staying in that trade or putting that trade on at the time, you would have done so. It's that simple. If you allow yourself to get, to tap into whatever it means, let's say the negative connotation of what it means to miss out, then you're not helping yourself.
I used to, I don't know, if this goes back to number 2. I think it was number 2 here. Yeah. And I don't know if this would be, I always thought it was useful, but maybe in the context we're talking about, maybe the way it was worded wouldn't be. But I used to work with a trader who was a good trader, very carefree, good attitude and whatnot. And whenever he lost money on a trade, if it was like, let's say the bid fell away really hard as opposed to just losing 5 or 10 cents, the first words out of his mouth would be like, geez, man, I didn't think that was going to happen. And it just seemed like a very calming way for him to, and he'd be right on to the next
That would be
trade.
good for Greg. You see, that would be perfect for him. I didn't think that was going to happen.
Writing it down.
Yeah.
But he'd say it in a very jovial way.
Mhm.
Like, geez, didn't think that was going to happen.
How can you use this, if you're not taking your trades consistently, right? How would you incorporate it?
I'm not,
I'm not sure if that really fits with this as well.
well, I'm not really fits with what?
If you're not taking your trades consistently, so you're getting a signal and you take it sometimes you don't.
Do it whenever you're in the moment, whenever that is, whether you're taking your trades consistently or not. It's really not a function of using this.
Right.
Whenever you're in the moment, that you feel these fears of missing out, being wrong, or losing money,
not going
or leaving
in.
money on the table, then you use your function command, whenever that is.
So in other words, if you like, at the moment when you should be taking the trade, you don't, you use the function.
That's it,
command.
exactly. Whenever, yeah, remember, capture the thought, okay?
Okay.
Capture the thought and use the plus no more
Right,
function
that's going to
command.
be based on a fear of some kind.
Exactly, right.
You take it.
Right. And do the best you can. Okay, leaving money on the table. Go through the same procedure. I can't leave money on the table because I know that I will give myself an amount of money that corresponds exactly with the skills I've accumulated in combination with what I believe I deserve. That's the way it works. So I resolve to find out what I need to reconcile to deserve more money. Any questions about how this procedure works?
Yeah, I'm still a little fuzzy. So in the tape,
It'll make more
Of
more
all
sense
people.
after
no, I want to, all right.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
want to get the benefit.
Okay, good.
So in the tape, as he's going through this, these negative thoughts may come to us.
In the tape?
not in
This
the
has
tape.
nothing to do with the tape.
No, but what does
No,
it?
no, no. It doesn't have. This has nothing to do with the tape whatsoever. No, no. When we listen to the other side of the tape, the tape is going to sound exactly like the first side. It's not going to be any different, except the difference is the only difference is that he will install this function command, which is going to be just a few phrases.
Oh, okay.
It's just a tool. And this tool's in your mind that's
Right.
waiting for you to use it at a conscious level.
Okay.
If you don't use it, it just dissipates basically.
Right,
Okay? Okay. So, like I said, Bob Monroe doesn't know what you want to do. He's just giving
Right.
you a tool to use in a way at your discretion.
Okay, I didn't
Okay.
understand that.
Oh, okay,
Obviously.
good. Okay, yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad you asked because maybe
Yeah.
other people didn't either.
How often do you listen to the tape?
As often as you want.
Does it install it farther?
No,
Just make it more cognizant?
no. It'll just, like I said before, listening to the tape won't do anything to help you neutralize your fears or any unwanted beliefs. It's using the tool that will do it.
Will it make the tool stronger for you to use or better able to use it?
That's what I was going to
I would say no. I would say using the tool is the only thing that's going to make it stronger.
It's not like having a
Because, see,
dull
the-
knife and then sharpening it when we're listening to the tape.
The only thing that's going to make the knife sharper is using the tool. Your conscious decision to use that tool.
So you only have to listen to the tape once,
That's
never
it.
have to listen
No,
to it?
you don't have to listen to this tape ever again after today. You can listen to it as much as you want because you like it, okay? But like I said yesterday, and I'm going to say again today, listening to the tape has nothing to do with this process. It's using the tool. When you believe in the tool, it will work. And the only way you're going to believe in it is by using it and seeing the benefits. And the more you see the benefits, the more energy that you're going to put into it, and the faster it will work.
Is there a way for us, for example, the first time I listened to the tape was really relaxing, I was totally into it. The second time I was very distracted. It didn't work the same way as the first time.
Okay.
Now when I listened to the second one, is there a way for me after I listen to know that I actually have this tool, or it's just like I didn't fall asleep the first time or the second time? Would I know that I have the tool?
Just, Daniel, just use it and see what happens. Okay? Go through this regimen as I've given to you, and use it and see what happens. And if you feel like you need to listen to the tape some more, well then listen to it. But just use your own discretion about it. Okay? That's really, because like I said, the only thing that's really going to convince you that this works is by using it. And then the more you use it and the more benefits that you see from it, the stronger it becomes and the faster it works. So it's self-perpetuating. Remember I said that it won't work unless you believe it? So the whole idea is to use it and then believe it. It's self-perpetuating, self-prophesizing, as people might say. Greg.
So I guess, so as I'm sitting there trading away and I have a negative thought come into my mind, what I do then is say, plus no more, and then say,
Capture the thought. Go through the instructions. Okay? Capture the thought. Make it as tangible as possible. Then with as much conviction as possible, say plus no more. Okay?
You have to make the tangible thought negative, almost as though you're saying it to yourself, to seize it, and then do the plus no more to chase it out and put the new thought.
Well, it's already negative. You don't have to make it negative.
I know, but
You know,
I mean, in the
when-
middle of the day and the markets are going crazy and you have this fleeting thought, if you're trying to do it on the fly,
Yeah.
you got some problems. I mean, it's almost like you take that moment and say, I had that fleeting thought of disruption. So let's bring it back because it's gone. Let's bring it back and make it tangible that I actually thought through the
Oh,
process.
if it's gone and you want to bring it back and do it that way, yeah, you can do
Yeah.
it. Chances are it won't be gone. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, once it pops into our brain, unless it gets reconciled in some way, it normally doesn't go away.
Right, so as soon as you become conscious of that thought,
Yes.
capture it and
Right.
say the plus no more, and redirect.
Right. I'm glad to see all this enthusiasm. This is good. No, it really is. I'm not being facetious. I'm being quite sincere. It's nice. But I think it's time for lunch.
Yeah.
Good.
Quick one, or what are we doing for?
Yeah, just an hour for lunch, that's it. Okay. An hour, a little less, whatever.
Did they set aside?
Same place,
Like for
same back
example,
channel.
might do problem, but not taking the signals consistent. Yes?
Ask it again.
Ask it again.
If what coming, let's put it this way, if what you got out of coming here was just the impetus to do that time exercise, in other words, if you could walk out the door in a couple of hours with just the conviction to do that exercise alone, it was well worth your while to be here.
I think it was worth my while.
No, you don't have to say that. That's not what I'm saying. Okay? That's not what I'm getting at. I want you to. I really want you to see, to kind of grasp what I'm getting at, is that if going through this experience for 2.5 days caused you to come to the point where you've made up your mind just to do the one exercise, that one exercise about staying in, helping you with your patients, and putting a time constraint on the amount of time that you stay in a trade, that you either stay in that amount of time or get stopped out. If it just caused you to get enough conviction to walk out and do that exercise, then it was well worth your while. Because if this is what it took, if it took all this just to get you to come to that, ask yourself how long it would have taken otherwise had you not come here.
Yeah, good point.
What's it going to produce for you?
I would definitely do it. I've made up my mind.
Okay.
Making you start.
But do you see what I'm getting at?
I do.
If it took all this stuff from Friday night, all the stuff we went through yesterday, and all the stuff this morning to get you to the point where you say you finally made up your mind to do it, then that's what it took.
Right,
And that's why you came here.
right, that's true.
Okay? Now all the rest of the stuff, just put on the back burner until you get done with this. Because by doing just this one exercise, and this is what I'm talking to all of you, not just Jake. By doing this one exercise, it will give you a resource to do another one,
Right.
if it's necessary.
That's interesting. Sure.
And see, one of the reasons why people focus in on all of it, in other words, like, okay, well, what about this, and what about this, and what about this, like you kind of have this tendency to do,
Right.
okay? In a way, what you're really doing is kind of sabotaging the whole process by focusing on trying to grasp all of it. You won't do any of it. And therefore, because the implications of doing just one small slice of it is so powerful, and you know that. Subconsciously, intuitively, doing the one exercise will have very powerful implications in your life. So therefore, to keep you away from those implications, you'll focus in on, what about this, 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 and this, end up not doing any of it, and end up not getting anywhere. Okay?
No, I got it, definitely.
Okay.
I agree.
The smallest incremental step. that exercise right now is the smallest incremental
That's
step.
what you said basically, anyway, that's how you gotta do it.
Right.
Break it down to small steps,
Right.
one step at a time.
Right. Go ahead, Greg.
I guess I'm a little bit more of an intuitive trader, but I'm working on my patience, which the exercise has great implications for me. How do I just gotta while I'm doing these exercises, just kind of turn my intuition off?
Yeah, your intuition doesn't really have anything to do with this exercise, you might say. The intuition would have to do with how you set up the exercise. If you get an intuitive impulse about how to set this up, or how to set it up directly for you, like if you were to ask the question, how do I need to set this up, let the question go and wait for an answer, that would be using your intuition as part of this process.
Okay.
The process itself is somewhat mechanical because what you're doing is going through a set of steps to neutralize any resisting or conflicting thoughts.
Yeah, I guess because like one of the things that I have developed is if I start feeling comfortable that I can hold this for an hour or 2 or 3 or a day, it's an immediate cell signal. It's feeling that comfort. That's it. It's an immediate. I'll just hit the bid or get out.
Yeah.
And that's worked for me.
Well, the other thing too is what we're about to get into is scaling out. Scaling out will also. Do you do that?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
That's not an issue.
That's part of your regimen?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then what do you have a problem with on the last portion of your position? Letting it ride, letting the last.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have points you project out in the future that where it might get to?
Sometimes.
Well,
And
they
I
can't be
feel bad when
sometimes.
it gets there.
Well, what do you mean to feel bad?
Well, it's like the other day. I was like, "Damn it! I knew it was going up. I knew it was going to go to 19. All I had to do was just sit on my hands." And
With
not-
part of your position, you've already got most of it off.
Generally, yeah.
No, well, not generally. I mean, that's the
Yes.
whole point. You've
I
got
have a small
to
piece of it.
have a regimen where you've already booked a substantial amount of profits from the move.
Right.
You've got a small portion left.
Yes.
That small portion should be virtually meaningless. Meaningless. Now think about it. You've already booked a bunch of profit. There's no possible way you can lose on the trade, even if it comes all the way back to your entry point, because at that point you just scratch it, right?
Right.
Okay. So where's the significance here?
I guess in what goes through my mind is
You don't have to answer it now. That's a question you can ask yourself.
Okay.
Why it can't be completely a risk-free opportunity for you? Because you can project your point out to the future. I mean, project your point to where you think it might go. If it either gets there or not, it gets close to there. You can get on anywhere you want. And the other thing too, if your point that you're projecting it to has a possibility of it getting there, if it gets there and starts to back off, but it looks like it might blow through it, and you've gotten out, you can always
You
get
get
back
back.
in
Yeah.
as a breakout trade, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Wait for it to break out and confirm.
Yeah. Wait for it to pull back a little and buy it back. At the end of the day.
Exactly. That's what I used to do years ago when I first moved to Chicago and I was trading silver a lot. When I would ride a move up to a significant reference point and get out close to the top. You know, book all the move on the last portion of my position, and then if it was something like this, you know, like I had, and you know, I had a significant reference point. Let's say on a daily chart, the market's coming up here, and I'm going to go over this again in a little bit. But basically, what I said to myself and the clients that I had, you know, also in silver trades, is that, you know, if I got in somewhere down in here, I don't know if the market's going to get through this resistance or not. But what I do know is that if it does, it could be significant and keep on going. So basically, what am I risking to find out if it gets through there? In other words, people want to be on for the big move. They want to be on for the big ride, okay, as big as they can get. Now, I've already got most of my position off anyway. So what I did is that I just always took my position off close to this high right here, and then had added it back on as a buy stop up here. So if it went, so what I was basically risking, I was risking not getting the opportunity to book that much profit and saving myself, or booking that much profit just to find out if it was going to break through. In other words, this is what I'd be risking to find out if it was going to break through. I didn't want to risk all that. So I would forego the possibility of getting this much profit if it did go through and I hung on, as opposed to getting out and taking my profits and reinitiate the position right up here.
Alternatively, many times they pull back and then they go again, especially right toward the end of the day.
Yeah, well, it depends, it depends on your methodology and how much you need to, in other words, you say it goes through, it pulls back a little bit, and then does this, okay? Well, that's just a function of how much you need to risk to be into this trade.
Okay.
Yeah, once it breaks through, how far are you going to let it go back, back past this line to tell you that it's possibly not going to work? That's all that is. And there are a lot of different breakout methods that'll tell you exactly how much you need to, how much you need to risk in these cases. And it depends on the time frame you're doing it anyway. 2-minute chart's going to be a lot different than if that were a daily chart or even an hourly chart. Okay, the part that I'm just going to briefly go over this because I've already really covered a lot of it, except for a couple of points that I want to make. And that's on page 6 of section 5, the practical philosophy for change. Remember, we've talked about how we're in a universe that is constantly expanding. And if that universe is conscious, we're conscious. There might be certainly other aspects of the universe that's conscious. There might be a consciousness at, let's say, the macro level. And if that universe is conscious, it would seem as if that universe has a desire, this universe has a desire to expand. It is doing so, definitely. And we are expanding. We are evolving. Animals evolve. Insects evolve. Plants evolve. Even the earth evolves. So if you just kind of look at this from a practical perspective, what do we got? We got a universe that's constantly expanding. We got a universe that seems to, and this might be making a huge leap in terms of an inference, but I'm going to say a universe that even desires to expand. We exist at the micro level. We're a part of this universe. And it would seem to me like if we are in harmony with it, our lives would be infinitely easier, simpler. And if you look at the evidence of that, there's an abundance of evidence to suggest that what we need to do is continually expand. And why do I know that? Why look at the emotion of excitement? What gets us excited? What gets us excited? What?
Learning.
Learning gets us excited. What does learning imply?
Change.
Expansion.
Growing.
A mind once expanded can't go back to its original form. A mind once expanded cannot go back to its original form. You can't be who you once were once you've expanded yourself. Learning excites us. Starting a new project excites us. Starting a new job, unless we're dreading it for some reason, we're acting out of desperation, excites us. There's some powerful implications here in relationship to a kind of life philosophy. If all these things excite us and create a sense of satisfaction and happiness, then not doing it would imply what? Not expanding, not learning. Would imply what? That we ain't going to feel so good. It's called depression, hopelessness, feeling sorry for ourselves, stress, anxiety. What is stress? Simply our beliefs, our inflexible beliefs in relationship to an environment that is changing, and we refuse to acknowledge the changes. Right? Environmental forces that are in conflict with our beliefs, and we are refusing to be adaptable to the extent that we are feeling stress. Now, at the same time, look at it like this. We have one external source of information. I say one, meaning all the forces in the universe that exist outside of ourselves is an external force generating information about its nature and characteristics. But we have three internal sources of information. And if you look at it from one perspective, it would seem like if we're in a universe that's constantly expanding, where every moment is truly unique because atoms and molecules are in motion, and as a result of being in motion, they're in a constant state of change, making what's really out there constantly changing. But at the same time, everything we experience and record in our mental environment as a memory remains static, and the beliefs that we acquire as a result of these concepts that we end up formulating about the nature or how we describe the nature of the way things exist, if they remain static, it would seem as if, and to be happy requires being adaptable and adapting and expanding, it would seem like the universe has played a cruel hoax on us. Right? Except for what? Is there a compensating factor? Is there something that assures us that we can change and adapt?
Our ability to decide.
Our ability to think. Remember, our willingness to think. It all boils down to our willingness to think. Our willingness to think, the thinking process is not bounded by any constraints whatsoever. It's only our lack of willingness that keeps us from asking a question. You can ask a question about anything. If the question's honest and sincere, you will get an answer. I thoroughly, 100%, unequivocally believe, ask and ye shall receive.
So all the answers are out there, it's a matter of opening yourself up.
That's right.
Right?
All the answers are out there. Whether they get dumped in your brain, as inspiration, or whether, you find yourself opening a book or turning on the TV, some synchronistic thing, or overhear a conversation, as long as you are open, I guarantee you, you will get an answer.
Well, I think too, things come into our life when we're ready to learn them too, right?
That's the sincere openness. Okay? That's just another way of saying I am sincerely open. Because this part see, we've got what relates to this would be, let's see how we got that set up. Yeah, we've got beliefs and memories. See, at these two levels right here, we have beliefs and memories and associations. Well, I don't have to write it down. Beliefs, memories, and associations, which can all remain static. But we also have, and the way scientists also relate to this is left and right brain. This could be left brain stuff that's rational. Everything that's rational has to do with something that already happened. A rational thinking process is a process bounded by our past. But creativity definitely exists. And by definition, it means bringing forth something